Early Breakfast with Rosie Wright on Times Radio.
Or it would be Rosie Wright, but Tom Nunan is sitting in for her. Rosie is here from 2 o'clock this afternoon with Fee Glover. So do stick around for that. You'll still get your fix of Rosie later in the day. Now, though, at 5:15, time to go through the morning's papers. And joining us to do that is the barrister and the broadcaster, Andrew Eborn. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning, Tom. Always a delight to join you on Rosie's show.
Lovely to have you here. Just keeping the seat warm. That is all we can do. Front page of the Times, Andrew. Let's start with that. The government planning to house small boat migrants in barracks, disused barracks. Do you think this is a preferable solution to the use of hotels? We've tried to go through some of the pros and cons, and It's not entirely clear.
Well, it's very simple, isn't it? Stop the boats. That's what people want. This is sort of, is it more appropriate? Well, it's certainly cheaper. People have talked about the billions being spent and so on and so forth. And this is, as you earlier packed out, it was they'll be housed in 2 army barracks in Scotland and the south of England from next month. As Sir Keir Starmer, he piles on the pressure on the Home Office to end the use of asylum hotels within a year. A total of 900 migrants are going to be housed under these plans using Cameron Barracks in Inverness and Crowborough Army Training Camp in East Sussex. This is what the Home Office sources told The Times. Basically, these small boat arrivals will start being housed in these existing military accommodation at 2 sites by the end of next month, end of November. And the first of up to 10,000 migrants who the Home Office is hoping to house on military sites as it works with the Ministry of Defence to find several more disused sites. As you rightly say, however, the focus has to be on making sure this is a deterrent. Coming into luxury hotels and so on and so forth has always been the bane of everybody's life when they're struggling with their own issues. To hear that people coming here illegally are giving all these sort of wonderful benefits. So we do need to look at this. Is it better than putting them in the hotels? Absolutely. Is it going to be an absolute end to and an absolute deterrent? Well, time will tell. But we need to work out, are they smashing the gangs? Are they actually having an effective sort of stop on people coming over here? Because the statistics don't seem to suggest that.
Dave gets in touch. Dave Bordar, good morning. Labour are clearing the backlog, i.e. rubber stamping illegal immigrants' asylum requests to stay. This is more of a magnet. What the public want is genuine deterrence, like announcing that no one who comes to the UK illegally will be allowed to stay. Henry says the only solution is to accept it as a national emergency and get the Navy in the channel. This cannot continue. It does seem like, whilst it may be more of a deterrent, the government, of course, would say this is working in conjunction with all sorts of other things they're doing as a deterrent, the one-in, one-out scheme, trying to get through the process quicker, and therefore then when people do come and stay, if they don't have a genuine asylum request, then they get deported more quickly. But it does have to work in the pantheon of all these different policies, and this alone won't be the deterrent they seek. I'm sure we will be discussing more of it on Times Radio, and just after 5:30 we'll be speaking to a former inspector of borders and immigration. We'll try to get into the details of quite how this might work and what the pros and cons of it are, so do stick around for that. Front page of the FT, Andrew. Rachel Reeves is facing more of a challenge to make her sums add up, because there's supposedly a productivity hit that the Office for Budget Responsibility are looking at, 0.3%. It doesn't sound like much, but that could equate, think tanks think, to £20 billion in her budget. It's not looking good in terms of where Rachel Reeves is going to get the money from at the end of next month. How do you think she gets out of this bind? There's been all sorts of talk about, do you go for one big, hike to income tax, for example? Do you do lots of little taxes? What do you think the solution to it is?
Well, I think the solution is they're going to have to obviously backpedal on their election promise not to raise taxes. Number 10 is apparently furious that the downgrade has been delivered now rather than before the 2024 election. And just to put it in perspective, Tom, is that each 0.1% point downgrade in productivity forecast increases public sector net borrowing by $7 billion, is what they estimate in 2029. 30. So a 0.3% cut could create a 21 billion hit. So whilst it's all look tiny little numbers, that's what they're looking at. But the reality is exactly that. The promise that we had from Labour that they weren't going to increase those 3 taxes, basically it's going to prove to be untrue, let me put it that way. And so what they're looking at is, just to put this in perspective, I think it's always helpful, an increase in basic rate income tax by 1p would raise more than 8 billion in the year 2028 to 29, according to HMR Revenue and Customs. A 1p increase in the higher rate of tax would lift revenue by 2.1 billion, while a 1p boost to the additional 45p rate would raise, or 45 rate would raise 230 million. So we need to look at that. Other horrible things that people are looking at are things like what they call the mansion tax, where a lot of people are property rich, but cash poor. And they've been touting this about, and we'll see how this unfurls, but they're saying that properties over 2 million, there might be a 1% tax. They kind of revamp or relook at stamp duty and see if there's a better way of doing it. But either way, people will have to remember what those election promises were. And it seems clear, we've been saying the clearest signal yet, that those promises are not going to be able to be kept.
Yes, and it'll be interesting to see quite where the government lands in terms of property tax. As you say, we're a country where lots of people have a lot of their wealth stored in their property. Some would say invested in their property, hence why they think you should tax it. Others, and you've made this point out that actually, even though you might have a lot of wealth in a property, that's not money you can just give to the tax man, because your salary, your income doesn't quite cover that. A story that you raise with me, The Times asks, who will stop the AI data heist that's taking place in plain sight? And we've had lots of stories about how AI, powerful though it is, incredible though it can be, uses the information from the internet. We've had campaigns here at The Times in terms of how do you fairly use created content. This is also just talking about, comments on Reddit, not just, artistic content, journalistic content. Clearly, the technology is coming for us. AI is going to get bigger and bigger. How do we make it so that it is fair to everyone? Do we need a more stringent system for, data mining in this case?
Well, it's very simple. As you know, I'm determined to put the AI into Britain. I speak around the world as a futurist, back to the futurist, and the seismic advances that are made, which we hear about every single day as a result of AI. But it needs to get the information from somewhere. And obviously, there's a balance between existing works. As you know, I'm an intellectual property lawyer, so we look at protecting people's rights. So if it's using existing intellectual property work to create these wonderful machines, then clearly there needs to be some sort of compensation. And the recent Louvre heist had us all gasping about the dastardly ingenuity of the dual fees. Getting less attention is this repeated daylight robbery taking place online. And as you rightly say, what they call the Great E-scrape. It's a grubby, damaging practice which is happening in plain sight, and it needs to be stopped. So people like Reddit, lots of people will be using, lots of your wonderful listeners will be using Reddit. It's the latest business which is trying to prevent its information being taken by the army of would-be bank robbers, as it calls them. And they're going to be suing 3 companies who it claims to hide their identities, locations, and even mimic real people to dodge their website protections and pilfer at will. And that's what they're doing. They're scraping all of these different Google search results. There are apparently 3 billion of them, which reveals information from forum posts, comments, and discussions. So that's what they need to look at, and basically trying to bypass all those sort of protections. But clearly, the law not just needs to keep up, but also to be enforced to make sure that rights owners are properly protected.
Yes, Perplexity, one of the companies that is accused in this case, says that it doesn't train its AI models on content, and it argues that Reddit is doing the opposite of making an open internet, trying to put up barriers. Ironically, they said that in a Reddit post. So clearly they see some use in it. Something that is funny on the face of it, but actually slightly grinds my gears, at least personally, Andrew. Shrinkflation. It's sort of, there is something quite humorous about how many KitKats are there in a pack, for example. On the other hand, I personally would rather just the prices go up and you keep the sort of the higher quality of product.
Well, you're absolutely right. So what this is, it's a recent example of the project which are getting smaller, that's shrinkflation, without a corresponding reduction in price. So they're trying to hide it, if you like. So you might pay a particular price. You might say, it's the same price as my toothpaste. But actually it's shrunk from 100 millilitres to 75. So they've looked at a number of stores. So they looked at price roses from £1.30 to £2 at Tesco's, Sainsbury's and Ocado. But Aqua Fresh's Complete Care Original, other toothpastes are available. You can see that shrink shrink in sizes. And they looked at a number of these things. You've got Sainsbury's Scottish Oats. They previously sold in a 1 kilo bag. They're now offered in 500 gram packs at £2.20, £2.10 rather, which is up from £101.25 for the larger sizes. And that represents a 236% increase per 100 grams. I mean, huge ways of doing it. Coffee lovers are also paying more for less. You've got things like Nescafe's original instant coffee tins. They've shrunk from 200 grams to 190 grams at Tesco's, Morrison's and Asda. And also what's happening is not just about the shrinkflation, but also what they call skimpflation. Might be a new word for a few people. Skimpflation, where basically there is substituting ingredients or basically at a lower cost in order to do that. So, for example, white KitKats, I know we always like one of those with our coffee, they no longer contain enough cocoa butter, being less than 20%, to be sold as white chocolate. And what's happened, the retail editor of which said, look, households are already facing higher food bills. They can feel it, especially sneaky when manufacturers quietly reduce sizes or downgrade ingredients. So people will notice this. Be very careful what you buy. Check the labels and make sure you're paying, make sure you know exactly what you're getting. But you'll find shrinkflation is certainly there. And as I say, skimpflation is also now hitting us.
Talking of technology, you're very keen on technology. A personal question, Andrew. How nice is your TV? Because research suggests we often are wasting our money on very large, very impressive TVs with incredible graphics, but the human eye can't actually process the detail that we're seeing.
No, we love a TV, which sort of occupies most of the property. But yes, you're absolutely right. People look at these Ultra HD TVs. For many years, as you know, I go down to Cannes and present and look at the new tech and creativity, the advances in that. And one year, we looked at 8K, which is like super, super, super powerful stuff for the eye. The most massive screen they brought into Cannes. They had this wonderful 22.2 surround sound. It was fantastic, where you could see absolutely every pixel.
But can you see every pixel, Andrew? You can't see every pixel.
Well, just about. You can have a look. Well, when it's that sort of quality, the trouble is a lot of stuff doesn't look very good. So actors, maybe you can see their makeup is too heavily done on that sort of basis. The only things that seem to work for me were the animals, because you can see that they don't need to wear too much makeup, which is good. The problem is this, as you rightly say, the eye can't handle too much information, and therefore you're wasting your money if it goes too far in terms of how many pixels. And what they were talking about, I was interviewing a number of the key people from around the world, and they say the next thing is when they're going to be able to transmit directly into your brain, which will work on that sort of basis. So do watch what's happening here. Elon Musk is doing some great things with Neuralink and various other things. Watch the future of entertainment. We'll certainly be going in a different way, but your eyes have their limitations.
And very quickly, Andrew, research suggests that women use exclamation marks 3 times as often as men for fear of appearing unfriendly without them. Bucking this trend, I'm quite guilty of lots of exclamation marks. I have to edit all my texts and emails to take them out. How about you? You seem quite an exclamatory person.
OMG! Triple exclamation mark. There's apparently a gender gap in exclamation marks. So what happens, prolific users of exclamation marks, research shows that women use the grammatical tool to accentuate emails nearly 3 times, treble exclamation mark, more than men. And apparently the researchers suggest a liberal sprinkling is down to women's fears. They will appear cold and unfriendly without them. Extraordinary stuff. So there was this University of South California. That's where they did this sort of research. And it's partly correct. Apparently people using punctuations were perceived as more approachable, but often lower in analytical thinking. How extraordinary is that?
Yeah, I wonder if people judge you for it. And just before you go, Andrew, you flagged an anniversary that you'd like to bring to our attention today.
Oh, it's glorious. It's 50 years, can you believe it, when His Royal Highness, the then Prince of Wales, now our King, he visited the Magic Circle's previous headquarters at Cheney's Mews in Bloomsbury on the 28th of October, 1975. He was accompanied by his uncle, the Admiral Earl Mountbatten of Burma, who was a keen magician, and his flag officer, Commander Robert de Pass. And following his successful performance of the legendary trick, the Cups and Balls, His Royal Highness was elected to membership of the Inner Magic Circle with Gold Star. I'm also a member of the Inner Magic Circle with Gold Star. star. I've had the pleasure of doing that since 1989, can you believe it? But His Royal Highness King Charles is a proud member. We've got 1,700 members around the world. It is the premier magical society in the world, with the best magicians, including recently joined Penn and Teller, as well as Dynamo and David Copperfield and various others. It's a glorious mix of people, all united by their love of magic.
It feels like something you should be secretive about. We won't ask you to reveal your secrets on air, Andrew. But thank you very much. My grandfather, incidentally, is a member of the Magic Circle, so you're in esteemed company. Thank you very much, the broadcaster and barrister Andrew Eborn, going through the papers and giving us a sprinkling of a bit of magic royalty there.
Across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio.